Hi, and welcome to the Math Together show where thoughtful educators gather and learn together. I am Dr. Sue Looney.
I'm Molly Vokey.
And I'm Heidi Sibnani. We're so glad you're here today.
If you want to learn more about us and work with us or reach out, everything you need to know can be found on our website. So we are super excited for our show today. We have a special guest with us. We have Ann Elise Record, and she's going to help us answer this question here, which is, how do we use learning progressions to operate from an asset mindset as we walk into our new school year? So we are really excited. And before we get to that, a few things to announce.
Yeah, so if you are watching, please say hello to us, hit like, and share out that we are on. Ask questions if you have questions. Annalise is happy to answer questions, as are we, as we work through the show. We have resources that we're going to share with you later, and we also have a raffle today. Annalise is raffling off a really special treat, so stay tuned for that later, and she's going to tell us all about it.
So one other thing that we want to talk to you about is our virtual coffee chat. We know that this time of year is especially stressful for those of us who are heading back to the classroom, and we want to offer our services as a support to you during this time. We have an opportunity for anyone to sign up for a virtual coffee chat with us at the Looney Math Consulting website. If you just hit contact us, and one of us will have a phone conversation or a Zoom conversation with you and help you try and problem solve right before you begin this school year. So we're happy to do that. We're here to support teachers and learners both. So we're really excited to offer that to you today.
Great. So I get to introduce Ann Elise. I'm really excited. Her website is here for you, and we're going to pull that back up later. And I get the pleasure and the honor of sharing her bio. So Ann Elise is a New Hampshire certified K-8 educator, as well as a New Hampshire elementary math specialist. She's been an educator for 20 years in the roles of classroom teacher, K-5 math coach, adjunct faculty member for Plymouth State University, and currently the Bureau of Education and Research presenter, contributing author to Fluency Doesn't Just Happen with Addition and Subtraction, and an independent elementary math consultant providing training virtually. Her passion is working with educators to help them implement best practices within 3 basic pillars of classroom math instruction. We're going to talk about one of those pillars. And these pillars encourage growth mindset messages, and they are threefold. They are math fact fluency, word problem structures, and understanding the progression of the standards. So welcome, Ann Elise.
Thank you so much. So thrilled to be here.
We are so thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much.
So Annalise, we're going to start. First, I'd like to say hi to Denise, because Denise is checking in. She's saying hi to Annalise. One thing that I forgot to tell you is that to enter into the raffle, that Annalise has her special treat for us, you need to make some comments or ask some questions in the comment box. So, and I get to start off, Annalise. Annalise, we are asking everyone who joins us on Math Together show, what is your why? How did you get into education? Why did you get into education?
Well, I was actually working at a computer company for many years. My undergraduate is in sociology. I went to college in Maine. And so I worked at a computer company, and I taught classes and did phone support for their customers. And but I always kind of knew that being a teacher, my parents are both educators, so I knew that was kind of in my blood. But then I went to get my master's degree in order to teach. When I was living in Northern New Hampshire, I was home with my kids for a while. And then I became the grade 5 teacher. And the only class that I took in my graduate program that they had me take for math was math and literature. And so I could use picture books to help teach math, but they didn't share with me how I can teach early numeracy concepts, let alone an 8th grade science class, right? So I came out certified K-8. But I've always loved math. I learned it for rote memorization and procedurally, and that's how I learned it. And I did very well at that. So I thought I was a great math person. So I continued that in my classroom. I taught grade 5 for 13 years, and I taught very procedurally. And I know I did concrete and pictorial ways but it really was to show the students why the algorithms were working. But I didn't have a depth of understanding, and I didn't know the connections between things and the patterns and the reasoning and problem solving and things. And so the more that I've been on this journey and learning the conceptual mathematics, I have learned how math is for anybody, that we all have math brains. And then my journey of even teaching some pre-service college students, that was my first time that I'd ask them all, how much do you enjoy math on a ranking from 1 to 10? And the majority of them, now they want to be teachers, like
Right.
they want to become teachers. And the vast majority of them always told me they hated math. And they used words like despise and phobia. And I had some of my college students asked to have taking their test in a different room because they were so phobic. And I thought, something is not right here. That math's going to be a part of their lives, right? And the more now my consulting work now, that travel around the country and I've met parents and teachers and everyone, they're really negative math journeys they've had for math. And I'm all about making positive math journeys for every single student. And the asset-minded mindset that we all have things to learn and grow. We build what we know and to learn what we don't know. Every single brain can learn math. And I want to share the ways so that everyone understands it. And they, as I explain these things with the parents and teachers, they always tell me, if I had learned it this way when I was a kid, I wouldn't feel the way that I do now. And they really thought they were not math people. It really affected their self-efficacy. We've got to change this. We've got to make sure that everyone understands math is for everyone. We all can learn and grow, make it much more attainable and efficient for our brains. And that includes everyone on that journey. So that is definitely my why. I want to make sure that everyone gets that message. Even grocery store clerks, when I'm checking out, they'll tell me, oh, I'm not a math person. I'm like, hey, you are a math person, right? We're all math people.
Yeah.
You must get quite the look in the grocery store. Walking around telling everybody they're math people.
Too bad. We got to get that message out there.
Too bad.
You are such a good messenger for this, Ann Elise, because your enthusiasm is just contagious.
Mhm.
And underneath that is something quite serious, which is that mathematics is for all. You know, like your desire and wish for everyone to experience that is all about equity and opportunity. So it's a really great story, and I so appreciate I find your enthusiasm contagious. So
Yes, so thank goodness she got out of that computer business.
Right.
thank goodness. Yeah. So getting into our question, and you referenced this in your conversation, you know, answering what your why is, this whole thing about being positive, right? So you're connecting that to learning progression. So I'm hoping you can talk to us a little bit more. How do we use learning progression? So first of all, I'm not sure if our audience knows what we mean when we say learning progressions. And then that connection to an asset mindset. So if you could sort of speak to both parts of this question, and we'll unpack this for a few minutes.
Sure. And in fact, I want to talk about it in a variety of ways. So the learning progressions for me is all about the developmental journey that children go on to learn their new concepts. And when I think of, first of all, about early numeracy, students begin that journey by counting all. So we ask them to add two numbers together. They actually will put out objects for the amount in both add-ends, and they begin counting at 1. So for example, with fluency, right, they may be adding 3 plus 2, and they'll go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, singing it backwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that progresses to students actually knowing this is 3, and they count on the 4, 5. And then the 3 doesn't need to be held out. They put the 3 in their mind and go 4, 5. And then they head count on. They go 4, 5. And then students get to the point where they might use a derived strategy. They might say, well, I know 2 and 2 is 4, so 2 and 3 is 5. And then they get to that mastery where I know a 3 and a 2 make a 5. And then you ask, well, how do you know? Well, I just know it. But then you say, well, what if you had a friend who doesn't know it, right? So that trajectory of learning within that world of math fact fluency is a big part of my life. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Nikki Newton and all of her work. And the Math Running Records, to me, has been that really piece that changes everything about math instruction, because it can be a gateway to that strategy thought within our basic facts for all 4 operations. So that learning progression, again, that when we talk to our kids about their thinking, not giving time tests. I will never give a time test to anyone the rest of my life.
Hit like to that.
Yes, please.
Like,
comment.
We're all in agreement on that.
Right? And so instead, we talk to the kids about their thinking and say, what are you thinking? But when I'm listening to them doing their work, I'm being aware of where they are in that progression of learning. And that way I can find out what set of facts to work on with them and where are they on that journey of counting all, counting on, derived strategies to the automaticity, the mastery. And so within that, I think of it as a learning progression, particularly in the fluency world. But I also love Pamela Harris's development of mathematical reasoning. So it's the idea that students are in kindergarten in a world of counting and cardinality, but in grades 1 and 2, we want to help move them forward into additive thinking. So for example, if I ask a student 6 plus 7 on the running record, when they're telling me their answer and I ask them how do they know, how do they figure it out? If they're counting on the 7 to the 6 or the 6 to the 7, I know they're in a counting phase of reasoning. They're not doing additive thinking, right? So it's the context of an addition problem, but they're counting within it. And so, and then they do double digit work. When they're using the algorithms too soon on their journey, the algorithm, when you think about the algorithms, they're just single digit math facts. And very often our upper elementary students are counting on their fingers because it's hard not to when you're adding 7, 8, or 9. So the fingers don't bother me at all. I never want any student to be humiliated or feel embarrassed by fingers, but they're in the counting phase of reasoning. We need to do better than that, right? So if they're a 5th grader, we shouldn't be counting. We should be doing additive thinking because then in grade 3, we go on to multiplicative reasoning, right? And so very often our students are getting away to doing content instruction, but being in a previous phase of reasoning. So if you think about, let's say, a multiplication problem, if you're doing a multi-digit multiplication problem using an algorithm, it's basic facts. And very often the students have not memorized their basic facts. They weren't able to do that, right? So they skip counting. But skip counting is additive thinking. It's not multiplicative reasoning. Right. And so if kids go on to grade 6, the proportional reasoning content, if they're still skip counting to find the basic facts in the context of that kind of problem, they're phases away of reasoning from where they need to be. So we need to be aware as educators. And again, I mentioned the only class that I had in my graduate program, because I had taken math classes in college. Right. So I'm sure the thought was, well, how hard is it to teach 1 plus 1 is a 2? Well, let me tell you, there's a whole world of complexity to early numeracy, right? It's all about us learning about these trajectories of learning based on the research, and then being able to see where our kids on that journey and help them forward, building on what they know to do the things that they don't know yet. And that growth mindset that we're all on a journey, making mistakes is part of that process. That speed does not mean that you're a good mathematician, or being slow at math does not mean you're not good at math, right? That get that whole mindset out of their way instead of the growth mindset. We all can learn and grow. It's just a journey that we're all on. So that's what I think of with learning progressions, is that developmental of reasoning and what are they doing in their thinking of their work, but also within the fact fluency, because I think we can build a foundation for that within the fact fluency world, because we can begin that strategy thought. And the very same strategies can get applied to larger numbers and even decimals and fractions way down the road. So it transforms the math journey and the experiences for our kids.
And Elise, that is so interesting that you're talking about within the progression, how kids are using additive thinking when they're doing multiplication, and that's the first step to learning multiplication, but then continuing on with that additive thinking even while you're doing double digit. Heidi and I are working on a project right now where we are working with fractions and decimals and integers, but it's for high school and middle school kids who are struggling with those concepts. And I think you've just named the very problem, that kids don't move beyond, so to speak, additive thinking, or the previous level. I don't know, the previous, yeah.
Well, because very often I think we've gone to, and it's no fault of anyone's, if we don't know what we don't know, right? And so I know I taught the ways that I had learned myself, which was procedures and formulas. And the whole idea for math was to find the right answer. So I had keyword posters for problem solving because, hey, I have a trick for you. This big word problem that's going to freak you out. If you find the word more, it must mean add or multiply. And so you go all together. So here's this trick that you can do to do it and get a right answer. And so I thought they were good problem solvers, and so did they. Except for the kids who couldn't do it. And then it was still, right? So it was a whole compilation of a problem, right? So yeah, absolutely. That idea of that progression of reasoning. I think that what happens is that our students, many of them aren't able to follow the procedures. So if they can't follow the procedure, they go into interventions. But they don't need interventions. We need to teach it in a way that everyone can make their thinking visible with number relationships. And I think very often what's happened is we're not using manipulatives often enough with our students. I think they're only for certain students who need manipulatives. every single brain deserves manipulatives. And I've done it myself. I was a very procedural, I was not a visual learner. I thought, I'm not a visual math person, right? Well, then I was exposed to the idea of using, remember, pattern blocks with fractions. And my brain was screaming at me, like, what are you talking about? That this triangle is 1/6. And my mind, I remembered, like, what's happening here? But the more that I've done it, the more my brain now thinks visually. I've built those neural pathways in my brain. I've transformed the way that I do. And now that I have those visuals, I can visualize and project it to larger numbers and different things. It's just like the area model multiplication is one of the most phenomenal things. We'll follow all the way up to polynomials in high school, like that one model. What I can do in grade 3 with a basic fact, I can extend all the way to high school math. That's crazy cool, right?
Totally.
Our students haven't seen these in visual ways and having daily routines that are encouraging that reasoning and number sense. And so they fall into, they're a red kid on our testing, or they need an intervention. And we tried doing that algorithm, 10 different times, but we're not changing what we're doing with them. They're not unfilling the number sense. So they have thought that as they graduate to older grades, that math isn't for them. But we're not teaching it in a way that's accessible to all kids. If we did that, we wouldn't need as many kids in intervention.
Right.
Yeah.
Imagine that, right?
I know. Amazing.
Mindset. Yeah.
Well, I think that idea of using tools, and, more recently it's come across that, okay, we're going to use tools in problem solving. But I think in the past, at least when I was in school and many of the ways we were taught, that was only for those who were not getting, versus being a tool to make sense of the mathematics and really understand and have that picture in our brains so that we have something to go back to think about it more visually. And, Molly was mentioning, like, for us, even going back to that, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I've got to draw it out, or I need to get something out so I can make sense of it. And I think we have to, in all of our positions, we make that okay for teachers to understand. It's okay. Like, we don't need to, it's a good thing for us to be using those tools as we're thinking through the mathematical processes that we're working with. And I know that you have a tool that you love to use to teach mathematical concepts. And I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, and how you use that in the classroom.
Sure, absolutely. So Quiznir rods are my favorite, hands down, math manipulative. They are so powerful and they're so versatile. We can use it from kindergarten all the way on up. And so the thing is that our kids are getting caught in the counting phase of reasoning a lot. So if you imagine how, and I know how I did it with my students in grade 5 who were not able to do the algorithm and subtraction. I said, okay, let's get out these blocks. Let's see what's happening that's happening in the algorithm, right? And so I'd have the blocks out with the ones cubes in the ones place. And we would regroup and we'd take a 10 rod and trade it in for 10 cubes. So they had a pile. Let's say I happened to have a 5 in the top number in the ones place and then a 9 down below. Well, they'd have 15 cubes sitting there, right? You can't tell how many are there. You can't supertize that. You can't tell at a glance that there are 15 there. How do we then remove the 9? We count up to 9. And then how do we count how many are left? We count it. All the students have done has been counting. They're not thinking about subtractive and having any kind of reasoning with it, right? So I love Quiznir rods, number one, because the numbers are existing as a group. So the kids are not going to rely on the counting. It's going to kick in strategic thinking and number relationships. So for example, I find subtraction to be the Achilles heel of all of our kids. I don't think it's as much instructional opportunity in our classrooms. I think teachers, addition's a more comfortable level, comfortable thing to work on. And then they realize that, oh, it's February, I haven't done subtraction yet. Or I find when the kids use the math running record and they begin the addition trajectory, they'll go all the way to the end of it, adding within 20, and they say, okay, now you're ready for subtraction. We've missed the opportunity to connect the inverse relationship of adding and subtracting, right? So for example, here is an example of Quiznir rods, right? Now I've glued them together just to make it easier for us.
Yes. I'm like, wow, you have magnetic ones?
I glued them, so they're for this example. But all right, so
we're all math nerds. Oh my word!
I know.
Like, so in case anyone's never heard of Quiznir rods, they're hiding in your closets in your school. They are collecting dust. These are not a new tool. They were invented a long time ago. But each rod is of a certain length for each color. So no matter what yellow rod I'd pick out of the kit, it's always this length. It's 5 units long, okay? So what I'm showing you here is, I'm not sure if you can see it backwards or not. I don't know if that's better to see it as. But I'm showing you a length of 15. So I have a 10 rod and a 5 rod, and beneath it is an 8 rod. Now, very often when kids are doing subtraction, they are thinking of subtraction only as being removal. They're going to subtract. They're going to count back. And they're in the counting phase of reasoning. So they start at 15 and they count back the 8. And if they were to physically act this out, they're going to be thinking about counting back from here. And then they're going to count the number of things that are left. But Quiznir rods are kicking in a little strategy thought here. What if instead I take away 5 and then take away 3? So that I'm breaking apart my 8, I'm decomposing it into a 5 and a 3. Because 15 down to 10, I know is 5. So I've removed 5. And all I have left is 3 more to remove. But if I know that 7 plus 3 makes a 10, I know the answer is 7. Nice. And I haven't had to do any counting, right? I'm working in chunks to be able to use 10 as a bridge. Now, what if, however, we also, explore that subtraction is not just removal. It is also, we can think about using addition to solve subtraction. So going along with the problem type, the comparison, we said you have 15 cookies and I have 8. How many more do I need to be the same as you? Yeah. Right? That encourages additive thinking, right? Mm-hmm. So what if in our Quiznir rods, we have our 15 and we put the 8 rod over on this side? Well, now I can think, what can I add to 8 to get up to 15? Because that distance is also a meaning of subtraction. And using addition is a comfortable level for our students. And so if I start on the 8, it takes 2 more to get to 10, 5 more to get to 15. There's my 7. So I arrived at my 7 in 2 different ways of thinking. Now, in subtraction particularly, this is important because depending on the numbers, I do different strategies. If I were to ask you 90 minus 12, you might want to remove the 10, remove the 2, right? Mm-hmm. If I ask you 92 minus 88, you don't want to remove the 80 to remove the 8. But you want to think about addition. It's 2 more to 90, 2 more to 92. We have to have that flexibility of thought with subtraction. And so by using this kind of a math tool and being able to just move that 8 rod over, we can have the discussion with the students of what would your brain rather do? And having those inverse relationship all the way through. And then that applies to larger numbers, decimals, and fractions. All the computational work. The same strategies can apply to those situations as well. Just not the same idea of a procedure. And I mean, imagine like adding 4/5 and 3/5 to add numerators, keep denominator the same. Oh, it feels weird. 7/5, larger number on top. Whoa, it's improper, right? If I just break apart that 3/5 and give it to the 4/5, it's 1 2/5. I never taught that to any of my students. I showed them in concrete and pictorial ways why they should be adding numerators but not the denominators, and then trying to make it from the mixed number, the fraction over 1, I don't call it improper anymore, the fraction greater than 1 into that mixed number, right? I didn't know any better. But Dr. Maya Angelou says, we do the best we can until we know better. And then when we know better, we do better. And that's what I'm all a part of, is that it's no fault of anyone that we don't know these things. It's just a matter of learning it and then practicing it and then seeing the power to transform children's journeys with math that will help follow them through, and the teacher's experience teaching it. Because a lot of the teachers that I meet are phobic of math. I would say 80% of the people that I meet in my consulting work, the lower level teachers, meaning grades 1, 2, and 3, they love the little kiddos, don't get me wrong, but they also don't want to deal with the higher level math. So they want to teach those grade levels that are more primary, right? But they're phobic about the math. They don't like it. They have not known how to explore it. And then when we explore it in these ways, they're like, it's my favorite thing to teach now. And it never had been. They dreaded the math time of the day, or they didn't even teach it for a day. It was the first thing out the window if a schedule changed. Oh, no math today, because they didn't enjoy it. But it can become an incredible enjoyment with the mathematics and the kids and the teachers exploring it together, and including parents on that journey. I'm sorry, Molly.
No, of course. We're here to listen to you, but Denise does have a question, and I think it's a great question. I'm not sure if maybe we all want to answer this, or if Ann Elise has a good answer. She is, oh, look at that, so fancy. How do we support our colleagues to view where a student is on a learning progression as an asset that can be used to leverage further learning or instruction, rather than through a deficit lens and needing a pull-out intervention? So I feel like this year of all years, this is a very important question. And so Denise, thanks for asking that, because I think that teachers don't have time to be a deficit lens this year. There isn't going to be enough time for that.
Yeah.
Annalise, do you have any
Well, unfortunately,
tidbits for that?
that's what I'm hearing a lot is, oh, the gaps, the children are behind. We've had a pandemic. How are they behind?
Right. I like to say, who are they behind?
Yeah, they're behind each other.
Right. There's no
behind.
They're just in a place on their learning journey. We want to continue that journey, right? So
Right.
we always want, that's how our brain learns. Our brain will learn new things, attaching it to what we already know, building those neural pathways. So we can find out where the students are on that learning journey. We can capitalize on that to help connect it to larger numbers, like things through number talks and number strings. But I know the stress and the overwhelming ways teachers are feeling right now. And so going into the year, and I think that administrators don't know about elementary math at all either. And so the idea, they had the pressure on them of getting testing, and then let's test them and find out where the gaps are. And we're going to fill in those gaps. We're going to change that thinking. It's going to be asset minded. Now, the math running record to me is the best way to start off with that, because by teaching people how to administer the running record, I'm teaching them about early numeracy. And many of us didn't learn that. So they're learning about these trajectories of, counting all. And the more that you know the trajectories, the more you'll see it in your classroom. Even when kids are doing like a 4-9-6 on a Rec and Rec, they're going to be counting one by one. I'm going to realize, they're counting. Wait a minute. Or they're going to go 6, 12, 18, 24. Yeah. They're additive thinking. But a kid that says, well, I know 5 times 4 is 20 and 1 more 4 is 24. Multiplicative reasoning. Like it's our awareness of those that help facilitate the learning of the kids. So how do we share this with other teachers to get them all on board? It's a matter of us passing the word around.
Yeah,
right?
and I think we're primed for that conversation. I think, like you were saying, Molly, we're going to have to, we have an opportunity right now where perhaps your state has lifted state testing, right? And if they haven't, it's kind of a joke that you're going to test because I don't know what you're measuring this year. So we have a unique opportunity to operate differently. And this idea of, let me find out where you are on your path and then understand your next step. Powerful way of teaching. It's how we should have always been teaching. And if we can remove some of that administrative political pressure and just do what's best for kids, I think it would be great. So I love your idea of starting with something like running records. Another great place to look at, and we're going to run out of time to get into it, but it's sort of story problems. Where are they at with their story problems? And so we're starting here and we're moving there. So teaching the continuums, which is the work that all of us do. And then those learning progression documents are available in the work of Doug Clements and Julie Sarama. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Right. And so if we can bring and share that message. So I could talk about this forever, but I want to hear what you're working about, because when you pulled out those Quiznir rods and then you just flipped them to tell the other story, I was like, how can people what? I know what you're working on, but you can talk about what you're working on. So where can people get more of this? What are you working on that can really help people with questions like what Denise has?
Yeah. Now, as a consultant, I was traveling around the country and working in districts all over the country. And so now I'm not, because of the COVID crisis, right? And so I've always wanted to create an online course about Quiznir rods, because I find a lot of teachers have never known what to do with them. They have no idea how to start. And so I've created the K2 version of the class now, and I cover all 3 pillars. I cover fluency, math fact fluency, also problem solving. You mentioned the problem types. So the research of Carpenter and his colleagues on cognitively guided instruction, there's a hierarchy of problem types. And a lot of teachers don't know there are 15 problem types that involve adding and subtracting, just single step. And there are 9 problem types involving multiplication and division. So if we don't know those problem types, we're not really exploring it with the kids, right? So in my class, I cover the 15 problem types of adding and subtracting, as well as the content standards for K1 and 2. So that first class is done. It's already out there and live. You can find access to that on my website. It's anneliserecord.com, and go to the courses link, and you'll see that one is live already for you to be able to get. And then the 3.5 version will be up by this weekend. I just finalized the videos today.
Wow.
Everything, getting it out by the weekend. So again, in grade 3 to 5, I'm covering the fluency, the problem solving, and the content standards. And we have multiplication with area models up to 2-digit divisors of division, and fractions, all you can do with a fraction. So it's a world of elementary mathematics, but I think that the Quiznir rods have that power to help our kids move strategically in all those areas. And so I want to share that information with everyone. So I've got those online classes that you continue learning from me.
Great. So I encourage everyone to check that out, and I congratulate you on getting that together, and your new website's so beautiful. I love it. And you generously offered to include the course as that is the prize for the raffle. So maybe you can talk about what the prize is and how you're going to reach out to somebody once we give you their name.
Sure. So the class that I have is right now the one that's live is the K2, but you'll have a choice between the K2 one or the 3-5 one. And within that course, you have 2 hours of videos, probably more now with the grade 3 to 5 one. I haven't added them up yet, but fractions added a whole other element to it. But and then some resources as well. Some resources that I have for you to download, PDFs and things you can use with your kids in your classrooms. And so you'll get access to that. What I would do is I would email you, and then I would be emailing you the code that will allow you to get that access that course for free. As an on-demand course, there's no expiration date to it. It's just going to be there forever. So you can watch the different videos at your own pacing, but it is going through each grade level on those 3 pillars, as well as what Quiznir rods are, and also the virtual learning. So the virtual way we can use them. I love the Braining Camp app. It's got a Quiznir rod app. Now, Braining Camp costs a little bit of a fee. I know that they offer some free access, but if you purchase my course, you will get a 4-month access for a classroom of kids to be able to use the Braining Camp app, and you have access to all their manipulatives. And those manipulatives match the colors and looks to the ones that are physical. And they also have a sharing feature now where kids can do their work and then share it with you as well. So it's a phenomenal app. So another added benefit for the course is to get access to that for 4 months for your classroom.
Awesome. So if you are interested, whether you're watching live or you're watching this recorded, if you would just put into the comments either raffle K2 or raffle 3-5, we'll know, but we'll go through all those comments, and we'll leave that comment box open for entries until Sunday evening, and we'll pick a name on Monday, and then we'll connect you. So that's a super opportunity. Well, we are out of time, but you are just delightful and a ball of energy and sunshine. It's just been wonderful. I really appreciate your time today.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, so take good care. We're gonna say goodbye to Ann Elise, and we're gonna chat with our audience just a little bit longer. So, wow, my brain. She got my wheels turning.
I'm just thinking number lines connecting to Quiznir rods, and I can't not connect those things right now. So
if you want to continue conversations with us. Just to remind you, we have that opportunity to sign up for Coffee Chat. So on the Looney Math website, that's under Contact Us, and then you schedule an appointment, and you've got our time and attention. We are fired up about the Math Together learning community. It's starting to really kick in, and some great interaction. We actually had Steve Linewan drop in one night to chat with us, and then last night we played games together, and we learned with our members how we can play games in a virtual space, and we were able to support one another. And we're kind of learning this alongside with some of you too, because this year is unique. It's never happened before. So if you are interested in more support, more opportunities, don't forget the first month membership is free. So it's a good time to check it out. There's ongoing support there. So definitely check us out, and we're here to help.
We have a lot of great beginning of the year activities that you can use with your students right now that we're highlighting. So it's a fantastic time to check it out and get some support from other teachers and educators as we're all entering this really crazy and unusual school year. This next week, we are making a time change, and so we're going to be moving to 7 p.m. Eastern time, as many of us are beginning the school year, and so we want to make an adjustment to allow for those of you joining us from the West Coast to still meet with us live if you choose to do so. So we're going to be moving that time to 7 p.m., and we're really just excited and thrilled to have Dr. Sheldon Akins with us next week. He is the leader of the Leading Equity Center, and he's going to be speaking with us about something that's just really important to us, about how we lead for equity in the math classroom. And so we're just really thrilled that he is willing to be here with us and to learn together in that space next week. So we're hoping that you will join us live. We'll again be taking questions. in the comments box during that time, but also you can also follow up with us later. All of our shows are recorded and available here at Facebook or in the Math Together community if you want additional support there.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And just a reminder to always be curious and always be kind. Take good care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.